Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. And to all the living saints, 144,000 in number, scattered throughout the whole world, greetings. This is our episode number 3 on the subject, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Let us begin our study reading 1 SR 231. It says, though we cannot comprehend such infinite wisdom, it gives us better understanding of God's love for sinners and our misconception of so-called human knowledge of things. To the eternal I Am, who inhabits eternity, before whom darkness is light, and the remotest boundaries in space, his footstool, who sees the end from the beginning, and to whom 1,000 years are but as yesterday. All things are opened and naked unto him. Then it says, the last paragraph, the wisdom and knowledge of the infinite is beyond comprehension by the finite. The wonders we behold and the events which make the history of our world are but duplicates from the blueprints in heaven. It reminds me to the 11th hour servants, according to 11 symbolic code number 6, page 19. It says, the Lord has given us in this day an accurate and reliable blueprint in his 11th hour servants, so that none of us need ear in knowing how great a privilege we have to be a true witness for him in word, deed, and action. Let us not, therefore, put off the world and thus prolong the world's sorrow and suffering, but let each of us be among those who shall fulfill the purpose for which we were created, to verily help bring about complete and true rest and everlasting joy. God has faithful ones who will do it. Will you be one of them? 11 symbolic code number 6, page 19. And concerning the blueprint, it also reminds me the statement 1 TG number 13, page 6. Inasmuch as Zerubbabel is a signet, a symbol or a type of the builders in the day the Lord shakes the heavens and the earth, then Ezekiel's description of the mystic temple recorded in Ezekiel chapters 40 to 47, which is yet to be built, could be the blueprint of Zerubbabel's antitypical temple. 1 TG number 13, page 6. Now, let us continue our reading. I would like to read 1 SR, page 120, saying, would any dare say these are not all perfect symbols, or that it is only a certain man's interpretation and only an accident, or just happen and yet fit so perfectly? I would like to read again. It says, would any dare say these are not all perfect symbols, and or that it is only a certain man's interpretation and only an accident or just happened and yet fit so perfectly? But thus far only one phase has been explained. Now, here in 1 SR 233 and 234, it says, woe to him who may think all these wonderful designs in the beauty of perfection are just a chance or an accident. Such a one is denying the master mechanic of all creation. He is paying homage to evolution, meaning chance. 1 SR 233 and 234. There's another statement that I would like to read. 2 SR page 253. It says, it is certain that nothing could fit so perfectly by accident, but think of such marvelous foresight in devising a wonder of this kind, which could reveal by a living picture the future for thousands of years. Are not such evidences as these a token of love divine toward fallen beings. Gratitude swells from our hearts. Words fail us. We can only exclaim with the psalmist, Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I have sworn, and I will perform it, that I will keep thy righteous judgments. Psalms 119, 105, and 106. It reminds me the statement in 1SR saying in page 248, it says, just a short word saying, the Bible is Moses. So the Bible is Moses. And I think it is not just an accident that when Moses wrote the Bible, at that time, the very first book that he had written in the wilderness of Midian, Moses was 66 years old. And no one could say that that is an accident, brothers and sisters, but rather it is purposive design to indicate that the entire Bible predicted beforehand, it would be only consist of 66 books. Now, for example, in the statement in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 6, 392, it says, the gospel is given in precept in Leviticus. I would like to read again. Volume 6, page 392. The gospel is given in precept in Leviticus. And you might wonder, why is it that the book of Leviticus contain only 27 chapters? The book of Leviticus contain only 27 chapters to indicate that the gospel in the New Testament contain only 27 books. So, the gospel is given in precept in Leviticus. First, to repeat again, the book of Leviticus contain only 27 chapters. It is not just a mere happenstance that the gospel, the New Testament, contain only 27 books to indicate Leviticus, because the gospel is given in precept in Leviticus. Now, let me show to you the entire book of Pentateuch. We have a short illustration. Pentateuch, that diagram. And you can really see the wonders. Genesis contains 50 chapters. Why? To represent the year of Jubilee. And Exodus contains only 40 chapters. Number 40 is very significant, pointing to the 40 days. You remember, Jesus Christ remained for 40 days after His resurrection. And Leviticus contained 27 chapters to represent the New Testament, 27 books. We have Numbers, 36 chapters, and Deuteronomy, 34 chapters. 36 plus 34, that is 70, to point out the 70 Jubilees. Now, let us now study closely, brothers and sisters, these wonders recorded in the Bible. Now, I would like to connect our study concerning the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. Let us read 1SR. 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Here in 1SR, page 15, it says, meaning of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine found only one way. And it says, when the perplexing subject is made clear, then we must believe that the time is here. But this, as all Bible truth, is found only in one way and in one place, namely the storehouse, the Bible. Bear in mind that as Joseph of ancient days controlled the storehouse, even so Christ controlled the scriptures and the times. Many godly men in the past went to Christ, Joseph, and got all the present truth corn for that particular time that they could assimilate. While he, Christ, is liberal, he is also careful and therefore has nothing to waste. When Joseph gathered the corn in Egypt and stored it in the storehouses, he did it not for wealth, but to sustain life in the next 7 years of famine. The corn was a symbol of Christ's word, as we shall endeavor to prove. Let us go to page 19. It says, 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. So, let us read. It says, the 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine in the days of Joseph in ancient Egypt represents the world's history in two sections of time. as previously explained, namely BC and AD. Each one of these sections bear the biblical number 7, meaning complete. The 7 years of plenty is BC. Though one may doubt the application made here, the lesson we receive from it is true. In the Old Testament time, God gave plenty through His promise, and Christ, Joseph, stored it in the storehouse, Bible. But as we have no record that there was any of the corn left when the 7 years of famine had passed, neither was there any shortage. Therefore, it is plain that all the scriptures are to be understood, used up before the second coming of Christ. 1 SR on page 19. I would like to read this statement on page 20. It says, 1 SR page 20. The thought is that the 7 years represented by AD will consume all the corn word in the 7 years represented by BC, as represented also by the ears of corn in verses 22 to 24. And it says, is this not clear that all the writings in the Old Testament will be fulfilled and understood before the end of AD, the second coming of Christ? But is it not true that the biggest part or portion is not yet understood? How can one say that he has all the truth and does not and cannot explain a large portion of the Bible? Shall we pray to God to open our eyes that we may see and arise from this Laodicean lethargy into which we have fallen? 1 SR page 20. Now let us go to the actual event, brothers and sisters. I would like to read here in 1 SR page 106. It says, Joseph was 30 years old when he became governor. Christ was 30 years of age when anointed. So here the shepherds had make a comparison of Jesus Christ and Joseph, because according to 1 SR says that Joseph is a type of Jesus Christ. So being type of Jesus Christ, the shepherd's rod is making a comparison that when Joseph became a governor in Egypt, Joseph was 30 years old. The same with Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ was baptized by John the Baptist in the Jordan River, at that time, Jesus Christ was also 30 years old. And the second one that very significant that I would like to read, 1 SR on page 73. It says, 70 souls, type of organization. So number 70 is very significant, brothers and sisters. So we already showed to you that the book of Numbers, 36 chapters, and the book of Deuteronomy, 34 chapters. 36 plus 34 equals 70. So number 70 is very significant. Remember, the Shepherd's Rod says, track number 3, supplement 1934 edition, and page 67, it says, this subject to some may seem as strange as the thought of the earth revolving on its axis was to the inhabitants of another day. Nevertheless, incredible things often become plain facts. Hence do we little know of the many biblical numbers and their secret code, their secret truth at the present time. They are not always to be dark elements to God's people, for they must be there to discover and illuminate to our vision the signposts on our way to the holy city. Track number 3, 1934 edition, page 67, the supplement. And also it reminds me the statement in 1 SR Packet edition on page 56 and page 57. It is entitled Marvels of Typology. It says Marvels of Typology. The eye focused to the light of heaven sees that Jehovah God, the super artist, has employed in the scriptures every method known to mankind by which to unfold the wondrous structure of redemption. And now, while leading his people to the kingdom eternal, he employs for light on their way, even typology, the lives of men who have gone before and the experiences through which they have passed, and decrees that their defeats and victories should be the saints' stepping stones over every pitfall. and to arouse the spirit of men to a realization of His wonder-working power and of their inability to foresee the future and thus to walk in the straight path, the Omniscient One flings the challenge. Produce your cause, said the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, said the King of Jacob. Let them bring them forth and show us what shall happen. Let them show the former things, what they be, that we may consider them and know the latter end of them, or declare us things to come. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed and behold it together. Isaiah 41 verse 21 to 23. Who hath wrought and done it, calling the generations from the beginning, the Lord, the first and with the last, I am He. Isaiah 41 verse 4. Explain the cause, the reason, the significance of former things. He demands, tell us, what do they mean? What are they for? Can you predict the future by the past? Be it good or be it bad? Exhibit divine power if you can. One is our pocket edition, page 56 and page 57. So, it's a wonderful statement that God employed the history, brothers and sisters, the sacred history, so that through such happenstance, we could be able to predict the future, the groundwork. In track number 5 on page 34, saying, fulfilled prophecies are seen therefore to be employed by the scriptures only as groundwork for that part of prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. So while studying the type, because the type, brothers and sisters, is the unmistakable evidence. According to 1SR page 226, it says, the types themselves are not the true object, no more than a photograph is, but it is a representation which pictures and unmistakable evidence the object in view. 1SR page 226, it says, the types themselves are not the true object, no more than a photograph is, but it is a representation which pictures an unmistakable evidence the object in view. That is why the shepherds had called the types as the great searchlight. Here in 2SR 267, saying, a great searchlight by the power of the Spirit shining through the types is the only medium that can remove the obstruction and clear the way to an understanding of this and many other mysteries that are considered incomprehensible and that baffle the human mind. 2SR 267. So the times are regarded by inspiration as the great searchlight, that there are many mysteries in the Bible that seems incomprehensible, but through the typical representation, it can easily remove the obstruction according to the voice of inspiration. Now let us go back to the type and antitype with that occurrence. The 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. Now here in 1SR page 73, 70 souls type of organization. Israel arrived in Egypt in the 2nd year of famine. Genesis 45 verse 10 and 11. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast, and there will I nourish thee. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household, and all that thou hast, come to poverty. The arrival of Israel in Egypt stand for some symbol in which there must be a lesson. Note that this lesson cannot be for the early part of the Christian church, for Israel came in the 2nd year of famine. The lesson then intended here is for a later period in the history of the church. If we are to know the truth of the incident and the lesson intended to be derived from it, reference must here be made to the number of souls which entered into Egypt, and the sons of Joseph which were born him in Egypt, 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob which came into Egypt were 70. Genesis 46, page verse 27. The Bible says all the souls who came into Egypt were 70 in number. If we can in some way find the meaning of the number, then we shall understand the lesson. When Moses with the children of Israel came to Sinai, he organized the church there and in organizing selected 70 elders. The same organization years later crossed the Jordan and went into the promised land. There they had the Sanhedrin, which was composed of 70 men. Thus the number 70 is a symbol of church organization. The meaning then is that there will be a church organization sometime in the history of AD. If this is true, then that church which Christ with the apostles organized must disband. And of necessity, be reorganized. This is true, for the Christian church was disorganized in the Dark Ages, during the time of the beginning of papal rule. When again organized, it would partially fulfill Joel 2, verse 32, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. And it says, the 2,300 days or years of Daniel's prophecy in the 8th chapter gives us the entire truth of church history to 1844. Until which no call for reorganization. If there has been, or if this call for reorganization had met its fulfillment before 1844, the Daniel's prophecy would have made mention of it. As the prophecy is silent and there has no prophet God risen since the church fell into the papal power about AD 538 to 1844, then the truth of the symbol was yet in the future. As the prophetic period ended in 1844, the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary was opened into which Christ entered. If this incident marked the beginning of the atonement, there would have been no better or more opportune time for a call from heaven than at the end of the great prophetic period, the Day of Atonement, being the most solemn time for the church. Seventh-day Adventists were called out by a prophet and are practically the only people who believe in the 2,300 days. Then I would like to read the last part. Seventh-day Adventists only can fulfill the type, for just at this time they are called by a prophet of God to organize as a denomination and to proclaim the glad news, this gospel in all the world in this generation. Thus the symbol 70 meets its fulfillment at that time. Now, I would like to read 1SR page 76. It says, the beginning of this denomination was typified by Israel's entrance into Egypt, as previously explained. We shall now consider the truth of the land of Goshen. Joseph brought Israel into Egypt and gave them the part of the land to dwell in, which was the best land in the country of Egypt. And there Joseph nourished them, their flocks, herds, and cattle, and all they had. The land of Goshen stands as a symbol of the United States of America, in which the church came into existence. While our country is productive, like the land of Goshen, the richest in the world, and a Protestant nation, it is the best for missionary work, for it is made up of all nations, and therefore, like the land of Goshen, the most productive in Egypt, the world. 1SR page 76. Now, let us look at first the history, the actual happenstance during the 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. We already read, brothers and sisters, that accordingly, when Joseph became governor in Egypt, Joseph was 30 years old, according to 1SR 106. We know that the going out of Egypt in Israel after the flesh, it was occurred 1491 BC. Let me read to you, so that you could understand why we place here 1491 BC. Now, I would like to read to you 1SR on page 114 and 115. It says, the prophecy made to Abraham of 430 years ended at the time the children of Israel went out of Egypt, which is, according to Bible chronology, King James Version, 1491 BC. Now, I would like to read first what the Shepherd's Rod says concerning King James Version. Here in 3 Symbolic Code number 7, page 4, it says, moreover, the King James Version is the one to be depended upon, for the other translations of the scriptures were in some instances interpreted in the light of sectarian views, and thus, instead of being exact renderings of the scriptures, they contain thoughts in favor of the translator, personal belief. In 2SR page 118, it says, The King James Version is as dependable as any good translation. The King James Version is as dependable as any good translation. Now we have already two proofs to firmly establish that Israel after the flesh, they went out of Egypt in 1491 BC. Here in 1SR 115, and accordingly, it is according to the Bible chronology King James Version. 1SR 115, and it is dependable, the only version of the Bible that is recommended by the Shepherd's Rod. So it is dependable. You can trust the translation of the King James Version. Now, the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain, brethren, that ancient Israel went out of Egypt in the year 1491 BC. Now, I would like to explain first, just a little explanation, because that is not our subject, concerning the Bible calendar. Here in track number 10, on page 38, let us read again. Do the nations of today do not follow the biblical monthly calendar that in no wise alters the fact that the original weekly cycle has never been changed, and as it is entirely independent of both the solar and the lunar calendars, had God not preserved it intact throughout all the ages, the saints now in the times of restitution of all things would have great difficulty to restore it and to vindicate its integrity. To repeat again and again, the word to restore it cannot be applied to the weekly cycle because it has never been changed, never been destroyed. So the statement to restore it is to the monthly and yearly Bible calendar. And the principal reason why God preserved intact the weekly cycle, it would serve as the key in restoring the creation Bible calendar. But accordingly, the appointed time of such restoration is in the judgment for the living. Let us read again in 1 TG number 28, page 15. It says, "This message, therefore, is the one that precedes the harvest of the earth, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the judgment for the living, the day in which all things are to be restored." 1 TG 28:15. So the appointed time by which all things are to be restored is in the period of the judgment for the living. There are two things that we need to humbly admit. First, Betihotep died in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. He himself plainly told us that in answerer number 2 on page 93, saying, "Obvious is this fact because the nations among themselves have always been angry and are angry even today, although we are still in the time of the judgment of the dead." So the prophet made it so plain that they were still living in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. And then here in track number 3, page 43, saying, "As the cleansings called for in the parables and in Malachi's prophecy have never taken place, the investigative judgment of the living is obviously then yet future." And besides, all of us are cognizant to the fact that Betihotep died and the Bible and creation calendar were never been restored in his lifetime. And why is it that it is closely connected to our subject, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9? Because the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 is the antitypical Passover. And how could we be able to determine the antitypical Passover without the restoration of the Bible calendar? The only calendar that is known to the people of God and throughout the whole world at this present time is the Gregorian calendar. The Bible creation calendar, according to answerer number 3, let us read. On page 10 and page 11, it says, "To prevent his people from bringing upon themselves such a catastrophe, and to have them intelligent as to the time the year begins, the Lord God gave to Moses the sacred yearly calendar, which cannot be lost or miscalculated so long as the earth remains. He told him that the day which preceded the Exodus was the 14th day of the first month, and that forever thereafter they were to commemorate the Passover on that very night each year, the night following the 14th day. Thus was the Lord re-establishing the creation calendar. Answerer number 3, page 10 and 11. Why is it that it is in absolute necessity to restore the Bible calendar, the creation calendar, in the days of Moses? It's so because being in Egyptian bondage for 215 years, brothers and sisters, they lost sight of concerning the creation calendar. Now let me read to you the history in modern times in the living past. Let's read such historical record, brothers and sisters, concerning the modern times and the living past. It says on page 34, the Egyptians studied the heavens and attained a knowledge of astronomy. And one of their greatest achievements was their fixing the length of the year at 365 days. So, the Egyptian Empire changed the creation Bible calendar, by which the creation Bible calendar or antediluvian calendar consists only 360 days every year. And we will prove to you all the documents we'll give to you on the subject, the Bible calendar. And mostly all the evidences is found in the Shepherd's Rod publications. Now it says, the Egyptian calendar was devised in 4241 BC. By it, the year was divided into 12 months of 30 days each, leaving 5 holidays at the end of the year. It was this calendar with slight changes that Julius Caesar adopted for the Roman people many centuries later. Caesar added the 5 holidays to various months, thus making them uneven in length, and provided that 1 year in 4 should have 366 days, by which it was commonly called today leap year. Many centuries later, Pope Gregory XIII again corrected the calendar that was in October 1582 AD, and in the form in which he left it, it is in use now in nearly all civilized lands. So that is the history, brothers and sisters. Now, to repeat again, here in Answerer number 3, page 9 and page 10, it says, thus the all-knowing one, he who created the heavenly bodies, and knows the very moment he set them in motion to govern the day, the month, and the year, decreed that the holy feast be observed in the very month and on the very day on which they were first ordained. And one of the main objective why God take out His people from Egypt to observe the feast in the wilderness, according to Exodus chapter 5 verse 1 and 2. And accordingly, here in Patriarchs and Prophets, let us read Patriarchs and Prophets on page 757. It says, in the command for Israel's release, the Lord said to Pharaoh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Let my son go, that he may serve me. Exodus 4, verse 22 and 23. The psalmist tells us why God delivered Israel from Egypt. He brought forth His people with joy and His chosen with gladness, and gave them the lands of the heathen, that they inherited the labor of the people, that they might observe His statutes and keep His laws. Psalms 105, verse 43 to verse 45. Here we learn that the Hebrews could not serve God in Egypt. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 14 and 15, we find special emphasis given to the portion of the fourth commandment, which requires the manservant and the maidservant to rest, and the Israelite was told to remember that he had been a servant in the land of Egypt. The Lord said, the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. In Exodus chapter 5 verse 5, we learn that Moses and Aaron made the people rest from their burdens. And then it says, from these facts we may conclude that the Sabbath was one of the things in which they could not serve the Lord in Egypt. And when Moses and Aaron came with the message of God, Exodus 4 verse 29 to 31, they attempted to reform, which only increased the oppression. The Israelites were delivered that they might observe the statutes of the Lord, including the fourth commandment, and this placed upon them an additional obligation to keep the Sabbath strictly as well as to keep all the commandments. Thus, in Deuteronomy 24 verse 17 and 18, the fact that of the deliverance from Egypt is cited as placing them under special obligation to show kindness to the widow and the fatherless. Thou shalt not pervert the judgment of the stranger, nor of the fatherless, nor take a widow's raiment to pledge. But thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 757. So accordingly, brothers and sisters, historically, the main purpose why God take out His people from Egypt, it's so because they cannot serve God faithfully while they were still in Egypt. And God take out His people from Egyptian bondage. But the most important part in this study, brothers and sisters, because we have type and antitype. Israel going out of Egypt and spiritual Israel going out of Egypt. Now let us read in 2SR page 216. It says, in observance of the Passover, the Lord commanded Israel to celebrate that occasion 7 days. See Leviticus 23 verse 5 to 8. Surely no one would say that God commanded His people to commemorate that event 7 days with no object in view. Israel after the flesh going into Egypt, then out of Egypt to Mount Sinai, the Passover in Egypt on the night when the death angel smote the firstborn of men and beasts, at the departure of Israel are types of the church at the present time. The church going out of Egypt, worldliness, the purification of the church, the separation of the tares from the wheat, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. 2SR page 216. The fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Antitypical Israel going out of Egypt. Now let us read another statement. I would like to read here track number 8. It says on page 74, it says, as the Passover and the slaughter of the firstborn, first fruits, who had not the blood on the doorpost, released God's ancient people from the bondage of Egypt, so shall the antitypical Passover, Ezekiel 9 verse 4, Isaiah 66 verse 16, free the first fruits, the 144,000, His firstborn now from the bondage of sin and sinners today. Track number 8, page 74. Now here in 2TG, let me read to you. 2TG 41, page 3. It is concerning the current events. The current events, the Palestine situation, and how close the separation. And historically, these timely greetings, 2TG 41, occurred in the month of November 6, 1948. And that is just 4 days after the presidential election in the United States of America. Now, I would like to read this reading. I had been asked to give a study on current events on the Palestine situation and on the separation caused by the slaughter that is forecast in Ezekiel's vision. I wish that I could tell you all you want to know, but I cannot say how soon the separation, the purification of the church, volume 5, page 80, will take place. God alone knows the time. All I know is that it cannot take place before we prepare the way, before our God-given work in connection with Ezekiel 9 is done. Then it will come to pass that the Lord will suddenly come to His temple, the church, and purify the sons of Levi, the ministry. Malachi 3 verse 1 to 3. But those who receive not the mark will fall under the slaughter weapons of the angels, as did the unfaithful firstborn in the night of the Passover, the land of Egypt. And then it says, I am, however, certain that God will not keep us ignorant of the things we ought to know. If it becomes necessary for us to know ahead of time the day and hour of the purification of the church, the antitypical Passover, we will be told. Yes, we shall know at least as much in advance as Moses knew about the Passover in his day. He did not know much ahead the day and hour of the events that were then to take place, but he was instructed of his and of the people's duties and of what to expect from day to day. Neither did he know beforehand that they were to come up against the Red Sea, but as the cloud led them there, and as the Egyptians followed close behind, he was then told what to do. 2TG 41 page 3. So there is a divine assurance saying that we will be told. When that predicted event, the antitypical Passover, we will be told. And it is more in advance than in the days of Moses. Now here's another statement in 1TG number 3 on page 6. It says, the message moreover teaches that we should remain in the mother church and work strictly for her salvation. The conclusion then is that as long as we stay with her, there seems to be no need for ordaining the Lord's Supper privately among ourselves. Perhaps not before the hour comes for the penitent to be separated from the impenitent, as taught by the types by the Passover in Egypt and by the Passover on the night when Judas was to go out, never again to walk with the 12. Furthermore, no one seems to know when and how to observe the sacrament. Some observe it every Sunday or every Sabbath, some occasionally, some every quarter, and so on. It seems logical to say that when God commands us to ordain it anew, He will tell us also how and when to observe it properly. So, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, the statement given by the shepherd's rod. I think that is a divine assurance that God will tell us when, how, and when to observe it properly. And that is the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, the antitypical Passover. There is also a statement in 2SR. Let me read to you. In page 255 and 256, it says, the Passover lamb being separated from the flock on the 10th day, coincides with the separation of the righteous from the wicked in the antediluvian world. The day of Christ's burial coincides with the day of the commencement of the flood, also with the commencement of the plagues, and his ascension with the day after the rain ceased, also with the end of the world and the translation of the saints. These coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second, it has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church. See pages 216 to 280. And the closing of the ark, a type of the closing of provision for the world. Therefore, there are 30 typical days between one close of provision and the other. If we were given light on how to decipher these typical 30 days, it seems it would reveal the exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, Passover, to the final close of provision. Although the shepherd says this fact perhaps will not be made known until after the work of the gospel has closed. For a brief summary of the flood in type and antitype, we draw the reader's attention to the chart on page 250. And we will discuss this portion in more detail in the subject, the 12 figurative months. What I'm trying to emphasize in that reading in 2SR 255 and 256, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 is the antitypical Passover. And it is very important, brothers and sisters, to study closely this antitypical Passover. Now, before we will focus our attention to that portion, let us go back again to the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. And you can see how perfect the scriptures are. Now, I would like to give you a very simple explanation. The Bible calendar contains only 7 patterns. Why? Because there are only 7 days in 1 week. So I would like to say again, the Bible calendar contains only 7 patterns. Although we will discuss it in detail in the subject, the Bible calendar. So it's easy to understand the 7 patterns of Bible calendar. There must be a pattern by which April 1, I would like to make it in a consecutive order. There must be, brothers and sisters, April 1 by which that April 1 will fall on Sunday. There must be April 1 that will fall on Monday. Bible calendar 7 patterns. And to easily comprehend, for sure, April 1, it will fall one of the 7 days. Now, we will put it already in a consecutive. There must be April 1 by which that is Sunday, April 1 by which that is Monday, April 1 that is Tuesday, April 1 that is Wednesday, April 1 by which it is Thursday, April 1 by which it is Friday, and April 1 by which it is Saturday. So that is the 7 patterns of the Bible calendar. Unlike with the Gregorian calendar, there are 14 patterns because the month is uneven, and also every 4 years there is another 1 day added, and they call it leap year. But the Shepherd's Rod plainly told us here in answerer number 3 on page 11, saying, once for all is seen the utter impossibility of the Roman months having the slightest thing to do with fixing the time of either the Passover or the sheep offering, and thus not the slightest thing to do with reckoning the time of either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. Answerer number 3, page 11. So, it utters the impossibility that using the Gregorian calendar, you could be able to reckon, brothers and sisters, the reckoning of time. Either the Passover day or the sheep offering. Either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. And that's why I remember the statement in 2SR. It says, 2SR on page 41, it says, even those who profess to be teachers of righteousness have forfeited their faith in the Bible reckoning of creation. Let us read again the statement. Even those who profess to be teachers of righteousness have forfeited their faith in the Bible reckoning of creation. So, we will discuss that subject, Bible reckoning, in the subject, the Bible calendar. And we'll be dealing concerning the flood, the occurrence of the flood. Now, I would like to go back again, brothers and sisters. As I've said that we can really see the accuracy of the scriptures as stated in 1SR page 226, that the type is picturing the unmistakable evidence of the true object, which is the antitype. 1SR 226. Now, let us go back again to the actual happenstance in the days of Joseph. In 1715 BC, that is the time that Joseph became a governor in Egypt. And Joseph at that time was 30 years old. And also that is the commencement of the year of plenty. 7 years of plenty. And later on we will discuss to you how do we arrive that 1715 BC is pattern number 4. But it cannot be mistaken, brothers and sisters. So you can see here 1715, 1714, 1713, 1712, 1711, 1710. And you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Therefore, 1709 BC ended the 7 years of plenty. Now, in 1708 BC to 1707, that is pattern, the first year of the 7 years of famine. And then in 1707 BC, pattern number 5. That is pattern number 5, brothers and sisters. Here you can see that this is pattern number 5, the second year of famine. Now we can easily understand that when Jacob entered into Egypt in 1706 BC, it is not the commencement of the second year of famine, but rather at the end part of the second year of famine. But as I've said, there is a remarkable significance because 1707 BC is pattern number 5 and 1706 is pattern number 6. Now we already read, brothers and sisters, that entrance of Jacob into Egypt typify the beginning of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination. According to 1SR page 76, the land of Goshen, the beginning of this denomination was typified by Israel entrance into Egypt, as previously explained. And in page 75, it says, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which came into existence in 1845, became Israel. And would you think it is just a mere happenstance that the type, let us go to the type. The type 1707 BC is pattern number 5, and 1706 is pattern number 6, and 1844 is also pattern number 5, and 1845 is pattern number 6. No, it is not. It is not just an accident. It is purposive design, brothers and sisters. Now let us go to the antitype, brothers and sisters. Now here you can see the entire, let's go back to the subject, 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. 4004 BC, that is pattern number 4. Now let us go back to 1715 BC. 1715 BC is pattern number 4. Would you think it is just a mere happenstance, brothers and sisters? Now let us go back to that diagram. 4004 BC. 1 BC, the last year of the 7 years of plenty. Why we start in 4004 BC? Because B.T. Hotep says the significance of the 7 years of plenty is the entire BC. Now let us read again in 1SR. The entire period of BC, page 19, it says, the 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine in the days of Joseph in ancient Egypt represent the world's history in 2 sections of time, as previously explained, namely BC and AD. Each of these sections bears the biblical number 7, meaning complete. The 7 years of plenty is BC, so the 7 years of famine is AD. Now let's go back to the illustration, brothers and sisters. So this is the entire period of the 7 years of famine. And how perfect it is? Only by pattern. Because, brothers and sisters, 1 BC, the last year, the very last year of BC is pattern number 3. Whereas 4004 BC, pattern number 4. So this is pattern. I'm hoping you can place sign pattern. It is pattern number 4, pattern number 5, pattern number 6, pattern number 7, pattern number 1, pattern number 2, and pattern number 3. Now let us count by pattern. Pattern number 4 is 1, then pattern number 5, 2, pattern number 6, 3, pattern number 7, 4, pattern number 1, 5, pattern number 2, 6, pattern number 3, 7. So that is perfect. What the shepherd's rod is saying is perfect. The 7 years of plenty is symbolical 7 years, the entire BC, only by pattern. Because Bible calendar has only 7 patterns. Of course, there is an accurate significance. Why is that 4004 BC begin in pattern number 4, brothers and sisters? And 1 BC ended on pattern number 3. Now look at to the 7 years of famine. 1844 is pattern number 5, which is exactly correct because pattern number 3, then the next pattern to follow is pattern number 4. This one is pattern number 4. So this is the first year of famine. Then the second year of famine, 1844, that is pattern number 5. Now brothers and sisters, let us now count again. This one is pattern number 4, first year of famine. This one is second year, second. Then we have 1, then second. This one is number 2. Then pattern number 6 is 3. Then pattern number 7 is 4. Then pattern number 5, pattern number 1 is 5. Pattern number 2 is 6. Pattern number 3 is 7. And that would be in 2023. If we fully believe that we will be in God's kingdom for 7 years, from 2023 up to 2030, it was illustrated by 7 patterns, brothers and sisters. And we will prove to you that 2030, brothers and sisters, is the end of the last year of AD. That is the very last year, brothers and sisters. Although that is Bible calendar, because 2031 would be the commencement of the millennium, which we call the 120th Jubilee. Now, I would like to read the statement in 2SR page 252. It says here, a computation of like manner was employed to define the year of Jubilee, said the Lord, And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 40 and 9 years. Leviticus 25 verse 8. The 50th year, while the land rested, being also a type of the millennium, showing that the land shall keep a Sabbath rest, a like computation is used. Therefore, at the beginning of the 1,000 years is the commencement of the Jubilee in its antitype. And as the land was returned to the lawful owners in the typical year of Jubilee, just so it will be in the antitypical return to the saints. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Isaiah 60 verse 21. I think we have also a specific subject entitled the Jubilee. Now, let us ponder deeply. I know this subject needs to be repeated and repeated again, but it is one of the Bible numerology that had been given in the Shepherd's Rod, brothers and sisters. Now, let us read 2SR 245 and 246. As God declared the danger to the old world by the preaching of Noah in one generation, just so has He forewarned the world of its end in this generation. As provision was made before the flood for those who wish to escape the ruin, just so He has provided means and facilities for all who wish to evade the doom that confronts our world. Not to enter into an ark built by hands of men. No, that was only a figure, but into many mansions, prepared by the Lord Himself, not into an ark floating over mud waters, but into mansions resting on the foundations of precious stones. The dreaded flood is a type of the dark millennium. As God's faithful people were saved then, so shall they be saved now. But the sinner now shall perish as the sinner then. So in this reading, the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that the antitypical ark is the New Jerusalem. And the type is flood of water, but the antitype is flood of fire. And that is at the commencement of the millennium, brothers and sisters, or at the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. And we already read in 2SR 252 that the second coming of Jesus Christ is in the year of Jubilee. Now, let us read tract number 3, 1934 edition. It says here on page 67, the scriptures often employ mathematical means in defining existence of time and number of years from one biblical event to another. The number of days from the wave ship to the Pentecost was derived by multiplying 7 times 7 equals 49. In like manner, the number of years from one jubilee to another was determined by multiplying the 7 sabbatical years by 7, the sum of which is 49. Therefore, multiplication is a common scriptural method of teaching truth. But I would like to quote the statement, from one biblical event to another. So the Jubilee must be from one biblical event to another. Now, one of the prominent biblical events is the ascension of Jesus Christ in May 27, 31 AD. Now let us read the statement here in Bible Commentary. Let's read. Bible Commentary 6 BC 10:5. It says, the time had now come, the Spirit had been waiting for the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension of Christ. For 10 days, the disciples offered their petitions for the outpouring of the Spirit, and Christ in heaven added His intercession. This was the occasion of His ascension and inauguration, a jubilee in heaven. He had ascended on high, leading captivity captive, and He now claimed the gift of the Spirit that He might pour it out upon His disciples. 6 BC 1055. So, what is the biblical event in 31 AD? Jubilee. It was stated in 6 BC 1055 that ascension of Jesus Christ in 31 AD, it is a jubilee in heaven. Now, let us go back again to the statement in tract number 3, 1934 edition or supplement on page 65. It says here, if you think Christ remained 40 days after the resurrection. Undecidedly, if you think the Holy Ghost fell on the 120 just because there happened to be that many, if you think the 12,000 out of each tribe were sealed by chance, then you might as well think the fact that 12 times 12,000 equals 144,000 is a mathematical accident. Your own conclusion to this vital question should show you the amount of life there is in you. But for us, for sure, the 40 days when Jesus Christ remained on earth after his resurrection, it is divinely designed. Now let us read the Bible. Here in Acts chapter 1, on verse 10 and verse 11, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which is also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? The same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. Acts chapter 1, verse 10 and verse 11. So the statement in like manner, meaning Jesus Christ ascended to heaven in the year of Jubilee, Jesus Christ will come again on the visible coming of Jesus Christ also in the year of Jubilee. We already read that, right? In 2SR 252. It says that is on the year of Jubilee in its antitype. Now let us read again. 2SR 252. A computation of like manner was employed to define the year of Jubilee. Said the Lord, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee. 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Leviticus 25 verse 8. The 50th year, while the land rested, being also a type of the millennium, showing that the land shall keep a Sabbath rest, a like computation is used. Therefore, the beginning of the 1,000 years is the commencement of the Jubilee in its antitype. And as the land was returned to the lawful owners in the typical year of Jubilee, just so it will be in the antitypical. Return to the saints. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the brand of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Isaiah 60 verse 21. And we know that the commencement of the millennium is the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, by which, according to this reading, it is in the year of Jubilee. Now, we already read in 1934 Tract 3 supplement from one biblical event to the other, and it was proven with absolute fact. What is the biblical event of one Jubilee? Christ's ascension in heaven. 6 BC 1055. That is the year of Jubilee. Another biblical event, the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. Therefore, the commencement of the Jubilee is ascension. The end part of the Jubilee is when Jesus Christ will descend from heaven. The commencement is when Jesus Christ ascend to heaven. And the final Jubilee would be when Jesus Christ will descend from heaven. And that is the significance of 40 days. That Jesus Christ, after his resurrection, he stayed 40 days on the earth. And the significance that Jesus Christ also remained in heaven 40 Jubilees. And it's easy to understand. Just to multiply 40 times 50, that is 2,000. Then we can easily understand that the second visible coming of Jesus Christ must be on the year of Jubilee, the year 2031 AD. Now think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. But that is Bible calendar. We need to convert that 2031 AD in Gregorian calendar. When would that be on the Gregorian calendar, brothers and sisters? Ponder deeply, brethren, because that statement in 2SR in page 255 saying, such close calculations of the schedule of events that are soon to transpire. So we will be giving to you all the future events from 2021 up to the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, basing the Bible and the Shepherd's Rod publications. Brothers and sisters, although we know the year by which Jesus Christ will come, but still that is not a definite hour, because we do not know in what month of that year, because 1 year consists of 12 months. And the only thing that had been revealed by God is the year, but not the definite time of Christ's visible coming. But we can prove to you the very year, as stated by the shepherd's rod. For example, I would like to read to you. The year of Jubilee will answer all the questions, brothers and sisters. And all the perplexing problem will be easily resolved by studying the year of Jubilee. Here the statement given by, and I think such statement is even more reality in our days than in their days. Brothers and sisters, I would like to read. It says, besides, it should be remembered that these Mosaic institutions were as much commemorative as typically prophetic. And in the former light, it may be that they are to be reserved, as we are assured the Passover is to be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Luke 22 verse 15 and 16. And see also Isaiah 66 verse 22 and 23. Zechariah 14 verse 16 to 19. Hebrews 3 verse 5 and 6. Hebrews 8 verse 4 and 5. Hebrews 9 verse 24. Then it says, I would like to read the statement. It says, once more, if we have not those portions of prophecy which were given us for the express design of informing us of the time of the Lord's coming, should we place any confidence in the types? We should all feel that they could afford us nothing positive to rely upon as to time. Why then should we place so much confidence in an argument from them as to suppose that if the Lord does not come on the 10th day of the present 7th month, He cannot come till that day of some other year? And assuming this year to be the Jubilee year, that if He does not come this year, His coming must be delayed 50 years. The alleged fact that some of the Jews regard this as the Jubilee year is hardly worthy of a serious notice. It does not appear that the Jews ever keep a Jubilee when they could have done it as God required. It is now 30 centuries too late to begin, and we are guided by their chronology. We must give up the great sabbatical type. Now, first of all, brothers and sisters, we would like to hold the divine principle that was given by God to William Miller in his lifetime. Brothers and sisters, the only mistake of William Miller is the thought that in 1844, Jesus Christ will come on this earth. And the very reason in track number 5, let me read to you here in track number 5, that the divine command was, it says here, track number 5, page 102, Revelation 10 verse 11. And He said unto me, thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings, to correct their misunderstanding on Daniel 8:14. The prophetic word of God declared, thou must prophesy again, that is, repeat the preaching of Christ coming to earth. So that is very plain. It says, thou must prophesy again, that is, repeat the preaching of Christ coming to earth. Or in other words, that divine principle that had been established through the inspiration of the Holy Ghost, that Jesus Christ will come on the year of Jubilee, we should never give up, brothers and sisters. What the only thing that we need to give up is that their false applications, that it was in 1844, thinking that that is the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. But the divine principle that Jesus Christ will come on the year of Jubilee, it should not be given up. We should hold it as it is stated in the shepherd's rod in 2SR 252. That the second visible coming of Jesus Christ is on the year of Jubilee. And how could you define Jubilee? In track number 3, 1934 edition, supplement, page 67. From one biblical event to another, there is no other recorded biblical event which is in close connection with the subject of the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, except the ascension of Jesus Christ, by which He ascended on the year of Jubilee. He will also descend on the year of Jubilee. But why is it that He remained 40 days after His resurrection? To let us know that He will remain in heaven up to the 40th Jubilee. In the 40th Jubilee, that is the time that Jesus Christ will descend from heaven, the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. And that is the year 2031 AD. But that is the Bible calendar. And that is the reason why we need to study closely the Bible calendar so that we could be able to ascertain clearly when would be the Bible calendar will fall into the Gregorian calendar. Now, we will show to you and we will explain it later. That's 6,000 years. We have a diagram concerning the 6,000 years, which is exactly fits, brothers and sisters, to the year 2031. Because the great controversy declared clearly that that ceremonial system that had been established in the days of Adam ended on April 16, 31 AD. Exactly 4,000 years. Let me read you the great controversy. Here in the great controversy, 327. It says here, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. In AD 31, 3.5 years after his baptism, our Lord was crucified. With the great sacrifice offered upon Calvary, ended that system of offerings which for 4,000 years had pointed forward to the Lamb of God. Type had met antitype, and all the sacrifices and oblations of the ceremonial system were there to cease. For 4,000 years, when that system of offerings had been established, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to repeat again, brothers and sisters. It says, for 4,000 years, that system of offerings. Now, let us read when that system of offerings had been established in the old symbolic code. It says here, 8 symbolic code, 1 to 12, page 19. It says, Sister White says, the Lord first established the system of sacrificial offerings with Adam after his fall, which he taught to his descendants. Now here in 8 symbolic code 1 to 12, page 19, that system of offerings was established after the fall of Adam. What month does Adam and Eve were fallen into sin? Now, here's the proof. It says here, the 6,000 years. We have long been of the opinion that the curse under which this earth has existed from the fall of Adam would continue upon it for 6,000 years to the restitution of all things, when there will be no more curse. That the fall of man was in the autumn, there can be but little room to doubt. Till that event, there must have been a continual succession of fruits in Eden, as there will be in the new earth, which will be Eden restored, where one tree alone will yield 12 manner of fruits, which will not be confined to the months in one season of the year, but will yield its fruit every month. Although here we have succession of fruits from May till late in the fall, and in Judea from early in the spring. Yet in Eden, before the curse, the earth must have brought forth still more abundantly. But when man fell, and the ground was cursed for his sake, so that it should bring forth fewer and worse fruits, then we may suppose that all nature felt the blow, and straightway began to drop and wither as in our autumn. And therefore, the autumn being marked by the fall of man is fitly called the fall of the year. So the voice of inspiration plainly telling, brothers and sisters, that Adam and Eve were fallen into sin in the month of October. And that is the reason, brothers and sisters, Adam and Eve were fallen into sin in October 10. And that is the reason that the Day of Atonement is in October 10, because that is the very day by which Adam and Eve had been fallen into sin. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters. It is a long study, and to repeat again, we will be gradually unfolding to you all the future events from 2021 up to the year of Jubilee, the year 2031. Thank you very much for viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening.